Yo, what's going on, PV Nation? It's your boy Lionel, class of 2009, back with another episode of PV versus everybody, and I'm excited, man, for tonight's show. If you wasn't on last night, then you missed a treat. You know what I mean? You missed a treat and you missed a challenge. So I hope y'all are adhering to the challenge. All right. You know, we've been growing. We've been growing in the last 24 hours. You know what I'm saying? I just see the numbers and the subscribers just continue to keep increasing. And I know we're going to continue to meet that challenge right full force because as we talked about yesterday, y'all can't tell me that people ain't out here supporting. Now, we ain't what we want to be, but y'all can't tell me we ain't out here supporting. But listen, tonight's show is going to be a great one. And as I was thinking, as my cerebellum was rotating, you know what I'm saying? I was thinking, I said, I can't do this alone. I'm like, this is not the show to do alone. I'm like, you should bring some visitors along with you. And I said, you know what? There's nobody better. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody better than them KPVU gentlemen. Okay. And I was like, man, I gotta go find me a Khalid and I gotta go find me a Dorian. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, man? How y'all doing?
Well, I'll let Dorian go first on this.
Man, I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be here. I got a lot to talk about. I'm really excited to get into my notes, man. There's just a lot to talk about, so I'm ready.
Oh man, yeah, this is a long season, man. What about you, man? How about you, Khalid?
Man, being a freshman coming on the show is an honor. Number one, number two, it's great to be able to be in the position I am to cover one of my my teams. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot that I have in my mental notes and my physical notes here with me. A lot of things to talk about, and I'm ready to get into it.
That's dope, man. I appreciate y'all for coming through. And just, before we get into it, man, I want to know, right? So we got the freshman, got the senior, right? Because Dorian, you about to be done, right?
Yes, sir. I'm a graduating senior this semester.
So, man, how's the experience been with KPVU, Dorian, for you the last, little while, right? And so just this first year for you, Khalid, like, how's that experience been? Because obviously watching you guys, right, with the sports segments, I saw the Coach's Corner earlier today, right? You know what I'm saying? The interview did Coach Bubba, man. So how's it been just at KPVU as far as, because listen, the equipment, the look, it's awesome. You know what I'm saying? So how's it from the inside?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always a cool experience. Shout out to Dr. Teresa Dalves and Professor Clomax for giving us the opportunities to really put ourselves on this platform. I'll never forget my first time covering a PV basketball game was the Texas Southern game 2022. I was out there with a camera with my former director, Shanique Brown. And that experience, man, I just immediately fell in love with it. And now today I was covering the last home game against Jackson State. And I was like, man, this is actually my last time covering PVAMU basketball. So it kind of hit me in the feels a little bit. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the win for my last game, but it's always been a good experience with KPVU-TV. There's so many things going on behind the scenes. We have the LPGA Chevron Championship where we get to go and cover that coming up in April. But I'm really excited for the future of the channel. Khalid is a very talented freshman, so I'm excited to see what they can continue to build at KPVU-TV.
That's dope, man. That's dope. And it's dope for you to throw the alley-oop to Khalid, right, and be able to get him on the show. You know what I'm saying? So that's big, man, as us as, PV Nation looking out, you know what I'm saying, and making sure that other people are part of what we building here. So that was super dope as well. But, man, how's it been your first semester, man? You know what I mean? Because I know coming from high school to college, first of all, that's different. That's different. Studying is different in high school to college.
Yes.
That's different, right? And so to add on the extracurricular of being a part of KPVU, man, how was that experience for you? How was you able to handle it? You know what I mean? Like, just let me know.
So, first off, all glory to God. That's the only way I'm able to do everything that I am able to do. And second, my parents, they helped me through a lot going, from high school to college. And it was an easy transition to me because like I said, my parents, they engineered me to be able to take on a lot and be able to manage my time well. But coming into KPVU, I was excited because I saw that y'all covered sports. And when I got there, something that I immediately went to was I met Dorian. And Dorian told me that, oh yeah, we cover the games, we go on live TV and talk about it. And he had me at live TV. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I want to do this. So, it's a lot different from being on my couch talking with my dad about sports and talking about the little itty bitty things that I didn't think I'd get the chance to talk about on live TV. So it, and I think I'm able to do a lot of the stuff that I do at KPVU under Dorian because of my passion for sports. So when I think Dorian told me to go to which game was it? I'm trying to remember which game my first game was, but point is my first game, I want to say it was I think it was Texas Southern was my second or third, but after that game, I was like, yeah, nah, this is where I want to be. Yeah, I don't care how long it took me to make an MMJ. I don't care if, the people were telling me, hey, you too close to the court. Look, I like being here. I love this. Love to do this. So, it's been an experience. And I've had a very good support system. So, my first year has been amazing. It's a blessing for sure.
That's dope, man. That's dope. And I know the experience got to be great. Obviously, for most people that don't know, for me, right, I was a sports editor for the Panther back in the day when I was in school. We ain't gonna talk about that date and time now because you know what I'm saying. Y'all just made me feel like an old man anyway. But I just want to know though, because we're about to talk about this basketball recap. Before we get in that, listen, can y'all hoop? That's
sure.
One.
Can
y'all hoop?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I'm gonna say this right now. I was never gonna be no D1 basketball player. There was a lot going on in my youth basketball career, but I could definitely hoop a little. No doubt about it.
Okay. So Dorian's coming like, listen, I could hoop, but I wasn't no D1 player. So he's being honest, guys. So we can believe his reviews in here. You know what I'm saying? He ain't over here pulling punches. You know what I'm saying? What Khalid, can you hoop?
I could hoop. Like, I think if I played high school ball and I had a little bit more time and I had more drive to do it, I probably could have, not D1, but I think I could have contributed maybe D3 JUCO.
Okay.
I really tried.
I
still give anybody buckets for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all right, so y'all giving people buckets though behind the UC, y'all giving people buckets though.
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
and on the, it don't matter where. People can get buckets regardless.
Okay, people. All right, listen. Hey, listen. Now I can make a call at intramurals and find out what's really going on. Y'all don't be coming on the channel lying. Don't be coming on the channel lying.
It's all fun, man. No, but it's ingrained in all of us that love basketball. We all try to, play a little bit. So, but yeah, I love it.
That's dope. That's dope.
I'm definitely washed. Got them old man knees now.
Boy, you can't be having no old man knees and you know old man yet.
It's the truth.
Hey, bro, you're gonna have to do something with them knees then, man. You're gonna have to get some stretches in or something. You know what I mean? Hey, you need to work on some new angles with the camera, man. Get some leaning in or something. Maybe have an old man knees this early. You got a long career in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But nah, that's dope, man. So hey, listen, we can believe their analysis. They was honest, y'all. They was honest. They ain't come on here saying, really, man, I should have been on the team. I should have been on the squad. They ain't come tell us that now. So we can believe their analysis when we get into it, man. So let's get into this basketball recap. First and foremost, man, before we get it going, obviously we want to remind you guys, listen, if you're not following us over on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, right? Go ahead and lock in with this PV_versus_ everybody, man. You know what I'm saying? We're doing some big things over there. So make sure you locked in with us. Obviously, make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. Listen, the gauntlet has been laid down. The challenge has been placed in front of us. And listen, we've been growing, right? Listen, the last 24 hours, we done grew, all right? So we trying to continue to grow. So make sure you share this with PV Nation. Let them know what we got going on. Tell them, come on, hop on over here, right, and hear this season recap. And again, the goal right now, we pushed the goal up. Actually, it's 1,000 subscribers right now, right? Because we got to go and meet this challenge. The old goal was 500. Now we're at 1,000. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, if you wasn't on last night, then you done forgot what it is. It's why not PV, right? And so before this spring game, right, we're gonna be dropping this new merch. All right, why not PV 2024 SWAC champs? Obviously, December 7th, 2024 is when the SWAC championship takes place, and you know where it's gonna be at. It's gonna be in Prairie View, Texas, right? You know what I'm saying? So we got the merch already getting ready for that to go and drop it. So make sure you get your ducats and coins. You know what I'm saying? Get it ready, right? So when it drops, because listen, this is an exclusive drop. You know what I mean? We got a limited amount of t-shirts. You feel me? So listen, the ones that drop, it's gonna drop, and it's gonna be over after that. All right. So. But anyway, let's get into this season recap, man. We're gonna start with the men's side of things because obviously the women, They made the SWAC tournament, and so we're gonna do a little extra digging, on that side of things, because obviously, right, they got a chance to go to the SWAC tournament in Birmingham and get the job done. It's gonna be tough, but they got a chance, right? And so we're gonna start with the men's side of things, man. I just want to first start with you guys. When the preseason rankings came out, obviously the men were ranked 6th. Where were you in your mindset as far as what you thought this team would be able to do when you looked at, what they had coming in? Obviously, it was this is basically a completely new team. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you really can just call it a completely new team. You had I think 3 guys right from the previous squad that transferred over to this new squad. But what was your mindset at the beginning of the season before we got into out of conference play?
Oh yeah, I could definitely speak towards that. So I honestly did not really formulate an opinion about the team till I covered their first game against Kansas City Christian. And I had some concerns already, right? So I was talking to somebody who works for the team, and he was like, oh man, they're going to be all right. They're just trying to get a rhythm and everything. But from the very moment, Kansas Christian College, they're a D2 team, right? Yeah. They weren't necessarily hanging in with us, but they were like keeping it respectable and everything, which is okay. A good team can have a good night, right? But it was more so the body language I was seeing throughout the team. There was a lot of heads down, a lot of no camaraderie with the team. So it was just like, I was like, a little weary, but I got reassured. And with those reassurances, I was like, okay, so maybe they can perform. And then, of course, the preseason games against Western Kentucky, all those not top, but very solid PWI schools, those games came along and PV was just absolutely running the gauntlet with them. So I was very surprised, and I was like, oh yeah, so this is going to be a team that can definitely compete in the SWAC. So I'll say my first impressions were very weary of the team, but then as they continued to perform at a very exceptional level, I was like, okay, this team can compete. So my preseason expectations were kind of iffy at first, but they improved.
I got you. What about you, Khalid?
So me looking at the whole realm of HBCU basketball, kind of coming into college as well, focusing more on Prairie View, something I noticed was there was a lot of transfers this year. Something that Dorian kind of alluded to was, like, for example, Charles Smith played for I think Old Monarch or something like Old Dominion, Old Dominion, and Javante coming from the schools that he came from, and basically a lot of people from that old squad. There was only about 3 of them, and then a freshman of Orlando coming on. So it was a lot of new clientele, and just taking from what we all kind of know about how we see it in the NBA, where new players come to new teams, and we kind of see how the chemistry thing works. That's something that for me was kind of on question as well. But throughout their first couple strings of games, you saw that they were a solid squad. You had a solid squad of players that were able to come together and still get the job done when time needed, when time came. And that's something that I was kind of really excited to see, was a lot of new players from these big schools come through all together and collaborate to get the job done. So I was more excited to see all this talent come to one place and really perform.
No, that I get that. That makes sense. I mean, honestly, if I give my real thoughts, I feel like early on in the season, I knew we were gonna have trouble. Like early on, I remember putting this in the group chat, you know what I'm saying, in the PV Fans Nations group chat, just like, man, listen, we have a really hard time scoring in the half court. And at the end of the day, when you talk about getting the SWAC play and really trying to hit it when you really banging with guys, and when it's time for you to, you got to go and get a bucket. The 2 problems I had early on in the season was I didn't necessarily see that we had a guy that we can go to when it's time to get a bucket, right? And if you want to look at Grambling, you look at Southern, you want to look at obviously Alabama slid down, right? But there was, these teams had a guy who, like, hey, in crunch time, where they're going and you know what they're trying to do, right? And early on, we didn't have that guy, right? You know what I'm saying? I think Coach Byron wanted Charles Smith to be that guy, right? You know what I'm saying? But to me, when I didn't think he was good enough one-on-one to be that guy, right? You know what I'm saying? And then we just had a hard time scoring in the half court. I'm like, at the end of the day, man, if you can't get a bucket in the half court, at some point it's gonna come back and hurt you, right? And that kind of goes into the second question I was gonna ask, right? Which is, what was the high point for you of the season? For me, the high point was that 3-game stretch early on in the season. I think it was Abilene Christian. Then we beat, I think it was UT Martin, and then I think Eastern Kentucky, right? And now watching the Eastern Kentucky game, and it was weird because the high point was also like a point where it was like, I realized like this is probably going to be a long season, right? You know what I'm saying? At that point, we're 4-1, right, on the year. But at the same time, I'm like, this, we have there's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of problems I'm seeing here, right? And one issue I saw was in 2 of those wins, you're talking about us giving up 20 plus more free throws, right, to the other team than we had. These teams just literally missed so many free throws. They shot horrible from the free throw line. And I'm like, this is not going to continue to keep happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't going to continue to keep happening, right? So that was to me what I saw early on. Preseason wise, I always say, hey, listen, I give Coach Smith a chance because I know he's going to have guys who come in and going to play defense. That's what they're going to do. They're going to be stingy on defense. They're going to get after. They're going to create steals, right? So I was like, man, they're going to have a shot. They're going to be in games. But early on, my high point is that 3-game winning streak in out of conference. But it also showed me like, man, we're a very flawed team. But for you guys, what was your high point of this past season?
Oh yeah, man, I can definitely agree with you. The high point definitely was the 3-game win streak. I mean, here on campus, there was a lot of excitement with the team when they were capturing those wins against Western Kentucky, against Abilene Christian, UT Martin. CJ Lane brought home a tournament MVP. Charles Smith was first team all tournament in the Western Kentucky tournament. So there was a lot of excitement. And like I said, going back to my preseason point, I mean, this was at the point where I was like, okay, this team might be able to compete in SWAC play. Of course, there were issues, especially issues with the team kind of not really meshing at the start of the season. But I always told Khalid this when we were talking in the studio, this is something that they can work on together, the camaraderie, the team aspect of basketball. That'll always come as long as they stay together and stay through the gauntlet. So the high point definitely was those 3-game win streaks. I know back on the show when I was writing the script and preparing to get on to talk about those 3 games, I was very excited. I know Khalid was very excited. A lot of us here at Panther Sports Zone at KPVU-TV were very excited. So I feel like the hype and excitement reached its peak at that moment. And from that point on, it kind of started, dwindling a lot. And then, of course, it hit our lowest point against Mississippi Valley State. So, yeah.
Man, for sure. But I mean, and think about the fact that it's like, man, if the high point of the season was that early on and then you sliding down from there, that lets you know kind of how the season end up going, right? But you talked about the Valley game, right? And Khalid, I mean, for you, right? Was that the low point of the season for the men for you?
Yeah. So me looking at this stretch, because it wasn't just that game specifically. It was the games that came before that. We were already on a losing streak, and I was going to agree with you guys on the high point as well. The 3-game win streak was the high point. We were on a 3-game win streak. Everything looked like it was coming into play, and then it got to the point where we had Mississippi Valley, which statistically did not have a win this whole season. They were statistically the worst basketball team in D1 basketball.
Period.
All of collegiate competitiveness.
Yeah.
And I think I told Dorian in the studio before the game, I was like, Dorian, something tells me something's not going to go right. And I like being optimistic. I love being optimistic. But there were things that we would see during that losing streak before Mississippi Valley that we saw that they didn't improve on. And that seeing the game, I remember I was laying down in bed at PV, and Dorian sends me the score, and I'm like, Dorian, no, they'll come back. Mississippi Valley, they'll come back. And seeing them not be able to take back that, just close out the game, it hurt. It was demoralizing, not just for the team itself, but for us that, for the fans here at PV, the ones that cover the games, like it was something that, and I think that's the point in time where we all understood that something needs to change, if that makes sense.
So what was some of the things that you guys saw, right? Because obviously y'all up and close to, right? Y'all are, seeing the games firsthand, more often than a lot of us, even as alums. So what are some of those things y'all was seeing throughout the year that you was like, hey man, they're really not, I'm thinking, hey, they're gonna improve in this or that area, but like it's really more of the same and even worse.
This is something that I'm really excited to talk about. This goes to my notes a little bit. I can't speak on everything I've seen because, of course, me and Khalid are courtside, right? So we have kind of an exclusive look. And, of course, it's not our place to tell business in a little bit. So we kind of keep everything in-house a little bit. But basically, to sum it up, and I know a lot of people seen it, too, while they're watching, this was not a team. This was not a team this year. I mean, I have it in my notes. They played we basketball instead of me basketball. And I told Khalid that on the sideline or the baseline one game. I mean, it's a lot of I need to get my shot. Oh, he's taking too many shots. Oh, he's not playing enough defense to take these many shots. It's a lot of that. And it's a lot of disagreeing with play calls, disagreeing with defensive plays, defensive play calls. I mean, just no real, and I'm going to keep saying this word, just no real camaraderie with the team. Yeah. I mean, just a lot of, oh, well, I'm going to get mine. Oh, well, I'm finna do this regardless. Well, he isn't scoring. I passed the ball to him. I'm just going to go ahead and take the layup, drive against 3 people. Not even getting back on defense, just things like that. So there was just a lot of that. And going into the Mississippi Valley State game, they're already on a 4-game losing streak. And I talked to Janari's house, another Panther Sports Zone member, and I was like, oh, man, they're not going to lose this game. I told Khalid, I was like, yeah, they're not going to lose this game. I mean, it's Mississippi Valley State. And me and Mississippi Valley State kind of got a beef, I guess you could say, because earlier in the season, I kind of went a little viral for tweeting out a thread saying, oh, well, PV women's and men's basketball should get easy dubs against them. But that 5th game of the losing streak against Mississippi Valley State was just absolutely low point. And that's like Khalid said, that's when we both realized something definitely has to change. We don't know what it is completely, but they just did not. They just weren't a team this year.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of what Dorian said, they didn't have a lot of camaraderie this year as well. And we saw it with how they were playing defense together, how they were exerting more effort on offensive and defensive end. During the end of the season, we saw players like Brian Miles. He had a 22 rebound game, which was astonishing. It was excellent. But when you looked at other games, you'd only see either Brian pulling down that kind of rebounding total. Everybody else would kind of, we kind of hold back. They would only think that he gets the board. That's his job. It wouldn't be let's box somebody out and make sure that Brian's able to secure it, or Brian securing somebody, let me go up and get it myself. When we see other teams, like I was given the opportunity to see another college basketball game. I saw UH play against Kansas the other day, and I saw that their team, I'm trying to think, Jamal Shed for UH, he was out there coming out of the woods and grabbing a rebound too. Or even back to SWAC basketball, when we saw Grambling and Southern and Texas Southern play, all those players, they would come off the 3-point line and crash the board, and that's a really intense example, but that's something that we saw, like being as close to the court as it is. And I think it was just effort. It was just effort and building that kind of chemistry and camaraderie together. That's like, I got your back. If that makes sense. There wasn't a lot of I got your back or don't worry about this, I got you. It was more like Dorian was saying, let me get mines, let me get out the way. It's all about me. There's no I in team, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what we saw a lot this year, and that's kind of what contributed to the Panthers not really exceeding on expectations this year.
Man, that's really interesting. I mean, that's good. That's good reporting, you know what I'm saying, behind the scenes, really, when you think about it, because at the end of the day, obviously, if there's no camaraderie, right? I mean, you talk about a sport to where, I mean, it's 5-on-5 for real, and there has to be chemistry. And so if that chemistry isn't there, obviously it's going to cause a lot of issues, a lot of friction, right? And then, when you're not happy, you're upset, man, you make a lot of bad decisions. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just in life, period, right? So you can imagine then being on the court, and not being happy. not really being able to make those decisions. We talked about it, before on the show, right? After that Valley game, right? We kind of had the discussion about the team, and about what was going on. And I think Jimmy mentioned it earlier, right? Brian Miles was, by far, right, the only person that seemed like, man, he knew, hey, listen, the defense doesn't end until we secure a rebound. And when I saw throughout the year, even early on, that, hey, Javonte Hopkins is your second leading rebounder, man, that's trouble, right? When you look at, because to me now, that's just effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an effort thing, right? For him, when I see him crashing the boards, but now we don't have other individuals who, and listen, we wasn't a team that had a lot of height this year, right? And typically, Coach Smith hasn't brought in a lot of height, but definitely this year, right? We definitely was even smaller than we have been in past years. But at the end of the day, man, for your second leading scorer, rebounder to be a 6-foot guard is me kind of telling, right? You know what I mean? That there is something that was missing there. Do you guys see that as more of an issue from the coaching side of things, or do you say, man, no, this is if the buck really is on the players, right, and them not leaning into Coach Smith's system? What do you see that landing? Because one thing I will say is, right, this is why, right, when I early in the season when I looked at, say, man, when you got to bring in a complete new set of guys in a new year, that's not building a program, right? You don't have that connection year in from year out, guys out built together, and it's hard to do that, right? Even at the highest level in like a Kentucky, when Coach was doing that throughout the years, right? But how much more, right, than here when you talk about on the mid-major level? So, but what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, and I'm really glad you kind of mentioned your last point about them not building a year-to-year connection. Elijah Davis at Panthers Sports Zone has been very vocal about Coach Smith's recruiting of JUCO and transfer players who are here to kind of in their graduate season or their senior seasons. We haven't really built any freshmen up. We had PJ Neal last year who left us, of course. Orlando Horton Jr. is another freshman here who we hope will stay with us this year. So there just hasn't been too much year-to-year connection. And of course, there's been a lot going on with this basketball team, even preceding this year. Last year, I believe in the last 2 seasons before the season, we had about 6 players into the transfer portal, a lot of players moving around saying, oh, I'm going to come here, play a PV, play a game, then leave out. So there hasn't been too much team building, team bonding with this program right now. So that's, of course, a problem in its own self. But Isaiah mentioned it in the comments. Size was just absolutely killer this year. And I'm always going to go back to this story. Me and Khalid on the baseline, and I walk up to him absolutely in shock because we had a lineup of, I think, the tallest player on the court is Charles Smith, the guard/forward. And I'm like, man, hold on. Is this the lineup we're really running right now? And of course, I'm a Houston Rockets fan, so I can't really talk down on small ball, but small ball has to be played the right way. And I think you can only play small ball when you space out the court. And we are not a team that spaces out the court at all. There is no spacing with Prairie View basketball this year. So that was a problem in itself. And the size, of course, we were the second worst rebounding team in the SWAC. We only averaged 13.7 rebounds per game. There wasn't a lot of effort, even with some of our taller players wanting to crash the glass. And, Javonte, he averaged 4.5 rebounds to start off, well, for the overall of the season, but those numbers kind of dwindled as we got into conference play. So I could tell even in himself, he might have been tired of like, man, why am a 6-foot guard crashing the glass more than some of our taller players? That's why I always get up to him, Andre Nunley, for their size. Of course, they might be short, but they definitely are very hustle-like players. So I always respect them for that. But and while we're on the topic of size, I always had this question. We had, let me go to my notes just to make sure I get this completely right too. We had Cyrus Gibsey, Justin Nimmer, and Mark McReed, 6'8", 6'6", and 6'6". Yeah. At the end of the bench the whole season. I don't know what's going on, if they were redshirting, if they were hurt. But that always confused me from the very start of the season. I was like, man, we have these tall players, and coach knows, I know he knows that we need this size on the court. So size was definitely an issue. And if we wanted to play the small ball brand of basketball, we got to play it the right way.
No, hey, listen. One thing, like you say, to play small ball, you got to space the floor. Another issue that we had all year at the end of the day was the fact that, listen, this team at the end of the day didn't have. You have small guards, and listen, hey, listen, I love everybody, right? But you got small guards that can't shoot from outside. That's just the reality, right? I mean, Nunley is not a threat from the outside. I love his hustle game, right? Javante Hopkins, I mean, obviously is a slasher, right? You know what I'm saying? Has a lot of hops, very athletic, but he's not a great outside shooter, right? Kevin McGaskey, not a great outside shooter, right? So when you look across the board and not only were they not great outside shooters, you also talking about these guards also not being great free throw shooters, which is another problem, right? So you have your guards who are small who also don't shoot well from the floor or from the free throw line. That already lets us know we're going to have problems, right? Because, listen, when I play ball and you playing point guard, listen, you have to be able to hit free throws if you're a guard with the ball in your hand all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you got to be able to go to the free throw line and be able to knock shots down. And that's why we had success early in the year. When we talk about the Eastern Kentucky game, the UT Martin, right? Abilene Christian. What happened at Abilene? I mean, we went, I think, like 23 for 23 or something, right? You know what I'm saying? So we really shot the ball from the free throw line very well. But in the end, after those first 5 games, we started to dwindle back down. You know, guys like Nick Gonzalez really never got going, you know, from the outside. Charles Smith really never got going from the outside. The only person who really consistently knocked down shots from 3 was Charles Lane Jr. He's really the only guy there, right? And so, yeah, it does bode the question of, man, kind of what is your philosophy, or what are you seeking to do? Even from in the half court, I didn't understand what kind of sets we were seeking to run, who we seeking to run through, right? I always was like, listen, I think you need to just say, hey, listen, we're going to lean on Charles Lane. He's probably the best one-on-one player you got on the team. Let Smith and Hopkins run off of him, right? Brian Miles and Charles Lane, let them be the key focal points, right? And let Hopkins and Smith run off of them instead of, it seemed like we were kind of going vice versa, right? So, you know, that was all my thoughts, man. I think we definitely had, you know, guys who couldn't put the ball in the basket from the outside. At the end of the day, listen, I'm going to pack it in and zone it out. And that's what you saw teams do a lot. You know, packing in, zoning out. FAMU with the big 6'10" guys, like, listen, I'm going to just make you shoot from outside. Are you going to have to shoot hard, mid-range jumpers? You know what I mean? So I definitely thought that was an issue. And then, hey, listen, you know, in our one of our last things, we talked about it, you know, and listen, Coach Smith is a championship winning coach. 3 SWAC championships. Dorian, I'm sure when you got here was when he was on coming at the end of that run. And so I've said it before, if these last 8 years were divided differently, and you had a SWAC championship, then you had an 8-10 year, then a SWAC championship, then you were 9-9, and then 5-8, are now this year, right? 5-13, right? You know what I'm saying? Then, right, you have a SWAC championship. This is a whole different conversation, right? But when you have 3 bundled in the middle right here, and then you kind of see an 8-10 season, 9-9 season, 5-13 season, it's like, man, you're kind of moving away from things. And I think it goes back to right now, I don't know if we kind of really got a grasp on what we want to do in the recruiting field. You know what I'm saying? Because, and maybe it's, hey, listen, when the transfer portal opened up, that could have done a lot of damage to what Smith was doing before. That's just maybe the reality, right? And him having to learn now, okay, man, how am I going to really get guys in now with the transfer portal and what they're able to do now with being able to go to different schools? That really may be the issue. But I know that Coach Smith, and I know he's a competitor. He wants to win, you know what I mean? But I know he's probably, you know, scratching his head and going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out, what do I need to do to put a team together where he can stay competitive on the court? But I do believe that when we look back at those 3 years, you saw guys that were here consistently. That's the big thing we missed. And that was a consistency year in and year out. And we that's something that we missing. Right now, we got the 5 guys who are basically, you know, your major players this past year: Miles, Smith, Hopkins, Lane, Gonzalez. All 5 of them gone, right? So you're essentially are starting over, right? You got a lot of, Now you're gonna bring guys in who didn't necessarily play huge minutes, versus you now having a continuity. And so, anyway, what's y'all thoughts on that, man?
I think something that me and Dorian have talked about for a long time has been the option of bringing walk-ons in. I think this since this is my first year being here, I don't really know too much about how Byron is on that topic, how Coach is about this topic, but something that can combat this. You talked about how people that are here, we need people that are consistently here, people that will consistently show up, and I feel like a lot of times if we have people that, the option of walking on, that's something that we've talked about a lot in the studio. We feel as if a lot of players that will be walk-ons will be essential to this team simply because they'll show up. These are people that want to play for this team, not just, oh, I guess I'll go finish my year off here. Instead of these are sometimes freshmen, sophomores that are going to be able to grow with this program. And it really allows for us to kind of build that identity of Prairie View basketball. These people that go to Prairie View, the people that live here at Prairie View, they represent PV, and that's something that I feel like was not really there this season, was the identity. And I think that's what started to kind of lose over these last couple of years, is that we need the identity of it. I think that's, bringing in the walk-ons and allowing them to try out is something that is an avenue that we can go down. So
what's your thoughts on that, Dorian? As far as, how to really build this team so that we can get back to that championship caliber team that we've been. Like Isaiah said, hey, he sits courtside. He hears it all. This season was not indicative of the championship culture we've become accustomed to under Smith's leadership. Definitely need to see a 180.
Yeah, I mean, we're at rock bottom right now, to be completely honest. And I told Khalid I might be a little afraid of the coming years, and I kind of feel sorry for him because we might be potentially entering the dark years of PV basketball. The way we can kind of rebuild, per se, is, of course, like Khalid said, with some walk-ons, but definitely more emphasis on high school recruiting. I mean, I was talking to my dad. My dad graduated from PV in about 79. He always has questioned PV. This is before Coach Smith even got here, too. This is before we even had this staff with us. There's a lot of talent in the Houston area. And like Khalid was saying, these are people who will be brought up in the Houston area close to home with the focus to not only build up themselves, build up a HBCU, but build up a program so close to home that kind of can represent the city of Houston in a way. So I feel like we definitely need to touch a lot more high school recruiting in the Houston area. I know I talked to Coach Bubba and the football coach a few days ago on Coach's Corner, and I mentioned to him, like, I was really excited to see him bringing in players from Morton Ranch, from Fulshire, these schools that I recognize as a Houston native. So I think we should definitely focus on rebuilding in that aspect. And to kind of go back to your point about the way the offense was ran, I mean, I can't agree anymore. I mean, there were a lot of offensive sets that I kind of brought into question, And while CJ Lane started off very good at the beginning of the season, I had in my notes that I was kind of disappointed in him because he became more inconsistent as the season went on. And it's not just to say it's only his problem, but of course, after he won that SWAC Player of the Week, I feel like teams kind of keyed in on him more, and I wasn't really too happy with the way he responded to that. I mean, when he's on, I mean, he is absolutely on, but when he's off, I mean, it's kind of annoying to watch. And I saw a lot of players on the court getting frustrated with him too. And I saw a comment on here mentioning how players can seem to be scared to shoot because of Coach Smith's intimidation. And, me, Khalid, and really everybody at Panthers Sports Zone cannot agree more. I mean, these players are kind of seeming scared that they'll get pulled for any kind of mistake. They're scared that if they shoot this shot that's not in the flow of Coach Smith's offense, oh, man, they might not see the court for a little bit. So I feel like that's also just the way it was played. And, of course, Elijah Davis mentioned this as well. She said that a lot of these players aren't really trying to hear what Coach Smith is trying to tell them because they are graduate students, transfer seniors who are here just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be finishing off my last season here at Prairie View. I'm not really trying to hear what he's talking about. I'm going to go out here, try to get a win. We don't get a win. Hey, I got mine. And that goes back to my first point of me basketball instead of we basketball. So something definitely has to change. I really hope something does change because I'll definitely be staying in tune with my HBCU, even though as I move on. But I don't know. There was a pretty controversial episode of Panthers Sports Zone last week where one of our anchors called out Coach Smith, and while I don't completely agree with it, I mean, something might have to change. I don't know if that's with personnel on the team, with personnel on the staff, but that Mississippi Valley State loss really spoke to me. I was like, man, this is a team that's just not ready.
Yeah.
Just a team. Let me say this is not a program that's ready from top to bottom.
Yeah. Hey, listen, but it's honest, right? You know, we have to be able to have those honest conversations. You know, I mean, I love that, you know, I mean, they're able to share that, you know what I'm saying, as well, even at the on the Sports Zone. And we definitely got to drop that info too in the chat. So that way, y'all who may not been checking out the Panther Sports Zone can get connected with KPVU and what they're doing over there, doing some great things, man, with the university. But yeah, man, it is reality, right? And sometimes we have to have those hard conversations, right? You know, when we're not producing, you know what I mean? If it's a job, you got to get called in and say, hey, listen, this is where we're falling short, right? And it's not because we hate the person or anything like that. It's because, like, we're trying to hold each other accountable so we can be the greatest we can be. So that's really what we're talking about. If Coach Smith didn't have championship caliber, there would be no conversation we having right now in the first place. It would just be like, listen, who's the next guy coming in? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But really the hope in the conversation is, man, we know and we've seen what Coach Smith has done and can do. And we just need to help and figure out, like, okay, what do we need to do to turn this ship around? And I agree completely wholehearted with you. You don't have a program where I call it like, listen, I think the last couple of years they've been throwing the transfer portal at the wall and seeing what's sticking. Mm-hmm. That's basically what they've been doing. And I think, listen, you got to have guys coming in your program that you can build up in your coaching, your system. We don't have those guys because guys aren't staying consistently for 2-3 years. I mean, even if you're going to bring in transfers, like, to me, the best is like bring a guy that's going to be here for 2 years. I have the ability to be here for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Bringing in complete grad transfers, to me, it's just a bad way of going about it. Isaiah says, one more note. Since Bussy has left, we haven't been the same. Now, I know Khalid may not have, you know, a lot of experience with that. You know what I'm saying? Only one semester under your belt. But obviously, Dorian, you know what I'm saying, is that what is your thoughts toward that? Obviously, we know what Bussy is doing over at Alcorn right now. This year, they are number 2, right? They're in the second slot, right, in the SWAC. And so they got a good chance, and they've been rolling the last few games, right? I think they've been 5-0 last 5 games to end the year. So you almost got that same kind of Texas Southern feel that Johnny Jones normally runs up toward the end of the year. What's your thoughts on that, man? Because a lot of people feel like, man, we've missed Bussy, and he's been doing a great job since he got to Alcorn.
Yeah, Coach Landon, man. I'm gonna say this right now. I'm not too big of a fan of him right now because of last year's game where he kind of threw a little party on our court after they beat us. I mean, that definitely has left a bad taste in my mouth since then. But I feel like we are missing him in a way. It might have been the connection he has with the players, but just the whole staff probably does need an overhaul a little bit. I mean, we have a very good coaching staff. Like you said, we mentioned, we know what this team and what this program can accomplish. I mean, we've seen the success. It's sitting right in front of us with this, with that graphic, but I just feel like this team really needs to have a reset. Like G Boom said in the comment, we just need a reset. My dad said the same thing. It's just, we need players that are willing to listen to them. And I feel like, once again, that starts with younger players getting built up in the program. I know, like, for example, Brian Miles has been here since his freshman year. So I know he's probably more receptive to what Coach Smith is saying. He's like, okay, Coach Smith is going to lead me in the proper direction. And while I hope he doesn't transfer, I have a terrible feeling right now that he might be leaving us for a senior year. I just kind of had that feeling because I could tell he really wasn't happy with the production, maybe wasn't even happy with some of the coaches on the coaching staff. So I hope that doesn't happen at all. But I feel like we definitely need to bring in younger players who are more willing. And that doesn't even mean freshmen, like you mentioned. That could be JUCO transfers with 2 to 3 years left under their belt. I just think we need players that are willing to listen to Coach Smith and grow under him the same way the previous championship did.
Yeah, man. Hopefully he stays, like Jim in the comments saying, hey, man, he's not leaving. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully he's gonna stay for this last year. You know what I mean? Because obviously he was a very, very bright spot throughout this year, man. And hey, before we get into, you know what I'm saying, our awards for this year for the men, man. G Boom, appreciate the shout out, man. He says, great to see these young students taking up this craft of sports reporting. I see them at all the games, man. So yeah, man. Shouts out to all of you guys and everybody with KPVU-TV. Man, we definitely gonna continue to try to highlight you guys, get you guys on, man. So appreciate y'all for jumping on and being some of the first. You know what I'm saying? Also had Caleb come on as well. So yeah, man. Let's keep it going though. Let's talk about now our awards for this year, right? So first and foremost, man, we got coming up our MIP Most Improved Player Award. For me, I gave it to Charles Lane Jr. and he was I definitely agree with you, right, with the inconsistencies, right? But I just liked, right, the way he kind of, for me, toward the end of the year, Smith started to kind of step back, and Lane, I saw him kind of step up as far as, especially as a scorer. When you look at the SWAC games, right, 8 out of the 18 games, right, he was in double figures, and so really provided a boost from the scoring side, and that's really where we had a lot of trouble toward the end of the year. So Charles Lane Jr., man, that's my MIP for 2024. Dorian, who you got?
So for my MIP, I chose Kevin McGaskey, and I know his numbers might not reflect it, but I chose him for a very simple reason, that he was very missed last season. He only got one game under his belt, but having him on the court this season, it was very refreshing to see, because last year I had the same concerns. I was like, man, I wonder why he's not playing. I wonder what's going on with the injury. I hope he can return sometime soon. But now we see him on the court this season, and he's not only helping the team out in many ways, he's kind of leading the offense, and I was very impressed with the way he led the offense. I could tell he's very receptive to what Coach Smith is teaching out there, and that shows on the court as well. He hustles. He's a very good defensive guy. Towards the end of the season, his three-point shot began to turn on a little bit. So I was just highly impressed with Kevin McGaskey, because I always wondered last season, I was like, man, I want to see what he can truly do on the court for the Panthers, and this season he really did not disappoint for me.
Oh man, that's dope. And yeah, I'm happy to see. One thing that I wish we would have got to see more of was just the guards taking those outside threes, right? I think a lot of times they passed up on those shots and teams continue to pack the paint. And I was like, man, you at least got to be able to take the shots and make them respect you. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're not going to hit all of them, so you can soften up the zone. But again, I think like Isaiah said a little bit earlier, right? When you kind of feel like, man, am I going to get pulled? And when I just got in the game, 45 seconds ago, it puts you on edge to not be able to play as free flowing as you want to, right? So I understand that. Khalid, who you got?
So I'm a stats guy at heart. I love looking at a player's performance, over their stretch of the year. So
Yeah.
Mine's happened to be Brian Miles, and I say Brian Miles specifically because his second year. Between his second year and his third year performances, you saw a triple in rebound, you saw a triple in points, you saw a double in blocks, you saw a 10% added to his 3-point, you saw improvement across the boards. And that does come with the fact that he has more playing time now. But the fact that he was able to lead the front court with his tandem of Charles Smith and having CJ Lane in the corner and like the clientele that he has, he was still able to produce and lead the team. He's had, I think, multiple times where he's had over 15 plus rebound games. Like I said, I mentioned the 22 rebound game. That was amazing, right? So seeing him be able to lead the front court this season, this was the end of his junior season, but seeing him able to lead the team in multiple categories, what he averages 9.3 rebounds right now for the team. So seeing something that's that extraordinary from a third-year player that's grown with this program is the reason why, for me, he's my most improved.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, that's big, man. I mean, he definitely was, great all throughout the year. So, and definitely improved, especially from, you look at 2022, 2023 season to this year. Definitely big improvement, man. So next up, man, we got our newcomer of the year, NOTY, and it looks like we got a sweep here. You know what I'm saying? So we started on the other side. Khalid, man, what made you choose Javonte Hopkins for the newcomer of the year?
So a lot of most of the reason why I'm pretty sure the reason why we all put him is because, for one, the transfer portal. That's something that's big for PV. We have a lot of transfers here. So, but Javonte coming from, I'm trying to remember if I think it's
Tarleton State.
I think it's Tarleton
Tarleton
State.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming from Tarleton State, his role wasn't as big as it is now. And a lot of players that do end up transferring from one program to another one, their role doesn't necessarily transfer with them, nor do they seem to have an improvement upon stats. But in uh, in his world, let me just say that he's come off and has been that glue guy for both offense and defense. He's explosive, he's exciting. That I was telling Dorian one of my first couple times being there, I would have expected him to dunk on somebody before. Like
Yeah.
he just the fact that he's able to give that much excitement to the crowd and really come in and make a statement, and he had a game just recently where we saw back-to-back 3-pointers being just one after another and we're just like, wow, what can he not do? Right. So that's the reason why he falls in my newcomer of the year award.
That's dope. Dorian, man.
Yeah, just kind of piggyback off what Khalid is saying. I mean, he just really impressed me coming out of the transfer portal. And I'm a Fort Bend kid, Fort Bend high school area kid. Javante is from the same area. So I remember him specifically cooking my high school team a little bit. So he's always been that exciting player. So I was really excited with the way he came in. He was scoring. He was rebounding like a madman to start the season.
Yeah.
He was very impressive on the defensive end. The effort is always there. You could tell he always didn't agree with the play calls, and he had a lot of frustrations on the court. He would get hammered on the inside. He would complain a little bit, but he's getting up, hustling back, getting chased down blocks. I was just really impressed with the way he meshed into our offense. So not to harp on it too much, because Khalid just said a lot of the same things. I share a lot of the same sentiment, but I was just very impressed with him overall.
Yeah, man. Listen, you're talking about ending the year with 11 games in double figures in a row, right, to end the SWAC year. And you talk about throughout SWAC play having 15 out of the 18 games where he was in double figures. And so, led the team in scoring 14.8 points, second in rebounds at 4.5 points, right? Second in assists at 1.9. So, at the end of the day, like Javante Hopkins, obviously across the board, was a great pickup, great guy brought in, right? You know what I'm saying? And Mr. Pumpkin is like Fort Bend stand up, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, he definitely got the clean sweep on the newcomer of the year. And the only reason I didn't give him the MVP was because of this bad man for me, right? Brian Miles, right? You know what I'm saying? He definitely across the board. Listen, the reality is, if you remove Brian Miles from this team, and I remember one game, he got hurt and kind of went out toward the end of the game, and it was almost like a collective gas all across the universe from Panther Nation, because like, listen, if you remove him, this team is going to be in so much trouble, right? On the boards, we already in trouble on the boards, right? We're already not great in the rebounding category, right? Then you really have nobody at all that can challenge shots at the goal at this point then. So, man, he was just such a vital part of this team. He was a vital part of us being in games, having a chance, right, because of what he did on the glass and also what he brought offensively. And so, like Khalid said earlier, man, I mean, he just improved, across the board. So, for me this year, man, it's definitely Brian Miles was the MVP. And listen, Brian, if you listen to this, man, hey, don't leave us. Don't go. Stay right here. Anyway, so Dorian, man, why you got Brian this year for your MVP?
Man, that is a bad man. I mean, for me, I always had maturity questions, right? Because I was watching him in his younger days, and I was like, this is a player that I believe can be really good. But some of the mannerisms, some of the ways he was kind of responding to coach early in his career, I was questioning, but that's just completely gone. He has been astonishing this season. 14 double-doubles, led the SWAC in total rebounds, led the SWAC in rebounds per game. In conference play, he averaged 15 points and 11 rebounds. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say those are pro-like numbers. So I believe he can go pro if he continues these kind of play after his career at Prairie. So, I mean, I was just astonished. And like you said, he did go down. I think it was a Jackson State game, right? And I was tweeting about it. I was like, man, I mean, Brian Miles goes down. This just looks bad. I mean, because, of course, without him on the court, we're losing just a vital piece of the offense, a vital piece of the defense, a vital piece in the hustle game. I mean, we're just losing so many things, and he just does so many things for our team. I always look at the MVP award as somebody that does everything that contributes to winning. So he was rebounding, he was scoring, he was blocking shots, he was getting steals, he was even improved his assist numbers this year. I mean, those are the 5 key statistics right there, and he was just stealing all of them. So I had to give him my MVP hands down completely.
That's dope. Khalid, man. Charles Smith, the 4th.
Yeah. So for me personally, I wish I could have put double. I wish I could have, but Charles Smith, for me, the reason why I have him as my MVP is because he was the go-to guy for a lot of times in his offense. When they looked to him, he was scoring from the 3. He could take it to the mid-range. He could do a lot of things. And I think over the season, the coach really had him as the key point of the offense. There's a lot of times you saw Charles come off the wing on either side and work his man down to the elbow. You'll see him come off a backdoor screen from Miles to hit a corner 3. It seemed that without Charles for a lot of games, there would be no other key option. And you did see a lot of times throughout the season where teams would key in on Charles, and that would allow for other players like Javonte, Miles, Orlando, CJ Lane, all these other players to get going as well. And I feel like even though the MVP, I agree with both of you guys said, the MVP is the guy that you take him from the mix, it all just starts crumbling down. And Brian, and that's why I say Brian and Charles, that combination of a front court was very vital for their offense. So Charles, for me, was the MVP because he was able to deliver on each level of offense as well as contribute on defense. And them two being, Brian Miles and Charles Smith being in the front court together was a really good duo to witness throughout this season.
Yeah, that's dope. And yeah, he definitely was a guy who got keyed in on as the season started going on for sure. And I know that affected him a lot. I did, he had a couple games where, his percent, he may have put up a lot of points, but his percentages were kind of low for me, And so that was one thing that I wish we would have saw, just better, choice of shot selection. But overall, man, I can kind of understand, right, when, hey, listen, one thing that the team struggled with all together was, finding consistent scoring. You know what I mean? And so Charles Lane, man, Charles Smith, the 4th, I was with you too, right? At one, I had him, as a number 2, right? Kind of with newcomer of the year with Javonte Hopkins, but I was like, I gotta go with Hopkins, right? You know what I'm saying? So I kind of removed Charles Smith out the way. But man, I think that was big, man. So those are MVPs, man, MIP, and newcomer of the year. And so we're gonna get and move forward, man, to this women's season recap. Obviously, it's awesome because they still are going, right? They still got a shot, they got an opportunity, and they played pretty well toward the end of the year. Definitely the end of the season for me, right, with the women's team has been far better, than the end of the year. I mean, than the beginning of the season. When I talk about season, I'm talking about SWAC season, right? And so when you talk about pre-season expectations for the women's team, where was your mind at when you looked at them, who are also ranked and placed in the 6th spot in the middle of this year too? What was your thought process on the women at the beginning of this year?
So for 2 of these segments, I'm gonna have one word. So for this segment in particular, my one word is concerned. I was absolutely concerned. We were losing Diana Rosenthal and Kennedy Paul, and not too much bias to be added in this, but of course, those were 2 of my favorite players on the team last season. I've always been a big fan of Diana Rosenthal. I was a big fan of Kennedy Paul and her game, and to lose them, I was like, man, I was looking up and down the new roster to see. I was like, where's the scoring going to come from? Diana Rosenthal was always a absolutely lethal scorer. And Kennedy Paul, while she had her differences with Coach Pugh, she would get subbed in. I mean, she's going to give you buckets. I always thought of her kind of like a Maya Moore. She might even been my favorite more than Diana Rosenthal. But I was very concerned. I was like, man, I don't know about this team this year. I want to make sure they have time to gel. Me and Khalid always talked about that on the show as well. This team needs time to gel and really come together as a team. So I was definitely concerned. I was like, man, I hope they can kind of get it together. And some of my concerns were kind of shown as the SWAC season started and the preseason went on, but they definitely have turned it around.
Khalid, what are your thoughts?
So it was more or less the same. Me obviously coming into this space of Prairie View sports, Prairie View basketball to be specific. Something that I saw that is shared between both is the fact that there's new clientele always. And like Dorian was speaking on, the scores that used to be on this team are now not here anymore.
Yeah.
But something that I was able to ease my brain was the fact that the new clientele that were able to come in took over that scoring responsibility. You know, we had players like Ryan Payne come in. Amari Williams is a freshman, and she came out and did numbers. We had Geraldine Smith come off the bench as well. We had Jada Roberson as well. We had people to come in to alleviate the load. So I think my expectations at first were to kind of see who's going to pick up the scoring load. And we had that answer as the season continued.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think definitely early in the year, I feel like it was kind of like, man, where are we going to get points from? Period. Right. I think before the season started, I was kind of cautiously hopeful, I will say, because, you know, looking at some of the individuals that were brought in, not knowing kind of, you know, seeing any of their game footage or anything from high school or from their time at other colleges, it still gave me a little bit of hope. Because when I checked out, of course, knowing Ryan Payne had played at LSU, obviously we all know LSU women's basketball, right, and what they do over there. When you looked at Amari Williams, who was one of the top-rated post players, period, coming out of high school, like across the board. Obviously, she went to Vanderbilt, an SEC school, freshman year. Got removed off the team for some team reasons, right? Maybe broke a team rule or whatever, right? And so to have her come down, I'm like, okay, well, listen, this is a 6'4", you know what I'm saying, young lady. Obviously, I saw Adriana Waddle coming over, coming from a JUCO, but looking at her size, I'm saying, okay, it looks like Coach Pugh is looking as if she wants to, you know, do a lot less maybe from the run and gun style that she had before to say, okay, we're gonna be able to put it into the post a lot more this year. And then Jada Roberson, right, who was coming over from Wright State as well, who had been a scoring machine over there, right? And she has shown that she can put the ball in the bucket. And so, though, at the end of the day, like, listen, Diana leaves, it's like, hey, that's a big loss, period. You know, some big shoes to fill. But I kind of was cautiously hopeful. But starting off in the year, man, it kind of was, it kind of showed like, okay, we really do have a hard time scoring buckets, right? And when I saw that, hey, listen, I mean, a string of games where Ryan Payne is the only one who was in double figures, I'm saying, man, this is trouble. You know, this is real trouble. So for you guys, what's your high point of the season? Dorian, you know what I'm saying? Khalid's probably going to pop back in a second. You know what I'm saying? For you, what was your high point of this women's season?
Oh, I think my high point definitely was that little 4-game win streak that they went on to get back on track in the SWAC play. The team was playing very good team basketball. They were really responding well to Coach Pugh's play calls. Ryan Payne was playing exceptional, and I always thought that she was kind of the most underrated player in the SWAC. I would be online. I don't think she got enough credit coming out of LSU, which is, of course, like we know, that is a great school. I mean, anytime you get a player transferring from LSU, I mean, you should be really excited. So I feel like the high point definitely was that 4-game win streak, because before then we was kind of like, okay, is the team really going to make the SWAC tournament? I was kind of, like I mentioned earlier, getting flack from some Mississippi Valley State fans and some other reporters across the SWAC were like, oh yeah, this team's not going to be nothing. And you talking about they should be an easy win for Mississippi Valley State should be an easy win. Oh man. But then, of course, they started turning around. They absolutely dominated the Mississippi Valley State game. Then they went on, lost 1 or 2 in between, but then went on that 4-game win streak. That was kind of the peak of my excitement for the season. But I will say, this is my second key word for this segment. I'll say my one word is just mid. Like, hey, 4-game win streak. Okay. Then a 4-game losing streak. All right. They're up on Jackson State, leading them the whole game. They look great right now, absolutely rolling, putting on one of the best shows in the SWAC, right? Then they choke the game at the end. Then the same thing happens for Texas Southern, and that kind of reflects in their record. I mean, they were 7-7 at home. That's literally mid. Like nothing record, that's literally mid. So it was just kind of mid for me, but the high point definitely was that 4-game win streak that got them on track, and probably is the reason they're in the tournament right now.
Yeah, no, that's definitely facts. Khalid, what's your high point for the women's season?
It was definitely that midseason turnaround, and something that midseason turnaround had showed a lot of us, as well as like the early wins in the beginning of the season, were that this team can produce when they need to produce. That Mississippi Valley game is a game that they needed to, they expected to win. Everybody expected them to win, and they did it. And that's something that we needed as Prairie View basketball watchers. We need to know if our team can produce when it's time to produce.
Right.
And with that being said, they are now able to be within the 6th seed and are able to produce come tournament playoff time. And that alone showcased that we have players that could come off the bench and give some extra effort. We interviewed Maya Williams multiple times throughout the season about her efficiency coming off the bench defensively and kind of pushing the effort where it needs to be. And then obviously our offensive juggernauts of Ryan Payne and Mario Williams, seeing them produce when they need to produce, that gave us a lot of excitement to finish off the rest of the season. So
no, that's big. I think I'm gonna take it back earlier in the year. McNeese State, because the McNeese State game was a 15-point win, right? You go to Louisiana to Lake Charles. Obviously, you're coming off. I think we played maybe Jarvis, or who did we play the first game? Houston Tillotson, right? So you're not judging that game on anything, right? 40-point win. That's what you're supposed to do at home. Then you go to McNeese, and it's a 15-point win. Now, you don't know what McNeese is going to be yet, but an out-of-conference win, mid-major win early in the year, when it seemed like, okay, have multiple people that's scoring this game, right? The ball is moving around. To me, that was the height of the season, in my personal opinion. When I think about early in that year, though, one thing that I did see that I had issues with, and we get to the low point, is I had an issue with Coach Pugh's like lineups. I had an issue with her and the mass substitutions. Honestly, I just didn't understand at all what her thought process was, what she was seeking to do. Because you don't give your ladies a chance to get their feet under them and really get into the flow of the game. And to me, that was one of the big changes toward the end of the year of why you saw this team start to play better, is because you didn't have these mass substitutions that Coach Pugh was using for whatever reason she wanted to. So you start to see a lot of the girls play better, right? Because when sometimes you will see in the first quarter when that first squad gets a little momentum going, they start the roll. It's like, man, you see all 5 of them subbed out. I'm like, this is not a good time to do this, So for me, McNeese was the high point of the season, and I think the low point of the season definitely was during this last 4-game streak. 3-game streak that we were just on, because I really thought that, okay, listen, I know Jackson's gonna be tough, but I'm pretty sure we can take care of Alcorn at home, and then Texas Southern in Hope Arena, right? And so for me, that was my low point of the year. What about you guys?
So I'm only saying this because me and Dorian, we talked about it on court before. That Alcorn game, I'm so glad that you mentioned it. That game was a winnable game. By a long shot, that was a winnable game. And something that me and Dorian saw at the end of the game, I know you mentioned it, was the rapid substitutions. And with 2 minutes left in the game, we see Ryan Payne, Jerome Smith, Amari Williams get taken out of the game. And this is a close game. So we're wondering what's going on. And I think something that I start to wonder is, how is it going to play into postseason play? Like, are rapid substitutions going to be something that is going to be a concern for us.
Hmm.
And, even though, I think we've had 5-game losing streaks, 4-game losing streaks early throughout the season, but what scares me is closing out of games is something that the women's and the men's team need to work on as well. And the substitutions and the play nearing the end of the game, that's something that I feel like needs to really get worked on, because that's something that cannot be a loose screw in your game coming to postseason.
Listen, you spot on right there. You spot on. You don't want anything toward the end of the year to carry over. And so the end of the year on 3-game losing streak, and all 3 were winnable games. It's tough, man. It's tough. Dorian, what about you, man?
Yeah, my exact low point is the moment Khalid just brought up, because I just absolutely didn't understand it. And it angered me so much on that baseline, because I don't know if it was tiredness, but at that point, I mean, you just got to push through. I mean, we were up by 2 possessions. I believe the score was like 51-67, right? They get taken out, 2 minutes left in the game. And of course, Maya Williams, a great player. Love her game, because she's kind of similar to me in a couple ways. Love her game, absolutely. But she has been getting guarded. Like, okay, she's dribbling the ball at the elbow, the mid-range elbow, and the team is backing off completely of her. They were guarding her like that the whole game, because they were absolutely daring her to shoot any shot, not just the open 3. They were daring her to shoot the ball completely. And you sub her in this late game situation, knowing that she has basically been a non-factor, confused me. Not only to mention, this wasn't like a defensive substitution. This was a substitution where we were finna get the ball and go back on the offensive end.
Right.
And that just completely took the life out of us. I mean, okay, we come back down the offense end, turnover, missed shot, they score. Come back again, turnover, missed shot, they score again. And I think it was a 3 to take the lead. And at that point, the momentum is shifting. Then you get our players, our scorers, our lethal players back into the game. And now, okay, they're trying to play damage control. Like, okay, let's clean this mess up that not to talk any mess to the bench players, but that they kind of have made, right? And at that point, now it's just getting out of hand. And then number 2 from Jackson State makes this absolutely demoralizing 3-pointer. I'm talking spinning all around on 1 foot, fading away from about 25 to 26 feet. Just what the heck? And she hits that, and at that point, the game is probably, you might as well call it game's over. So it was just that was definitely my low point. There's just a lot going on with those substitutions and just some chemistry problems with the team. It wasn't as big of a problem with the women's team as it was with the men's team, but the women's team definitely saw some chemistry problems for sure.
And for all those who don't remember, right? I mean, we were up by 1 point going into the 4th quarter of the Jackson State game, right? I think we closed the halftime maybe down by 5 or 6, and then we come back, we up by 1 going into the 4th quarter, and then it's almost like, man, just the whole floor dropped from under us. And so, yeah, man, I can definitely understand that. Obviously, this team finished 11-17, 7-11 on the year, which I think, like we always said, it's a little bit disappointing. Again, I think there was definitely a clear separation, right? There was a clear, especially in the middle of the year, there was a clear separation. You got 4 teams at the top, and then you kind of got the other 8. Then with those 4 teams at the top, there became a clear separation with Jackson, and then you had the other 3 teams, Grambling, Southern, UAPB. I think that's how it sits right now. But when you have the other 8 teams, of those other 8 teams, I didn't see any of those teams that were world beaters, right? Even when you talk about the Grambling, the Southern game, especially the second game of those 2 that we played against those squads, those were winnable games as well, right? We were in those games until late. And then, we allowed them to go on a run to kind of push the lead up, and then we're going from there. Southern, obviously, we went into overtime, right? Came storming back, going to overtime and lose there. And so, again, overtime, just having a tough time putting the ball in the basket, right? And not being able to get stops and get rebounds, right, for second chance points. So this team has, it wouldn't shock me, right? You know what I'm saying? If the team was in the 6th or 7th place, because to me, what I thought would have been perfect was you land 6th or 7th. You don't want to be 4th, and you don't want to be 8th, because at the end of the day, that means you're going to have to play Jackson either first round or second round. If you want to have a chance to start building momentum and then maybe get a chance in a championship game to take them out, that was the better scenario. But now having to start off with them, I think is just, and coming off these 3 losses and the way you lose the games, man, it's a bad situation, a bad scenario. Before we get into the preview of this game against Jackson State, I wanted to pull this comment back up by Isaiah, right? Because when we talk about Coach Byron Smith earlier, obviously it's a championship winning coach who has won championships here at PV, and so you're a little bit lighter on those who you've seen being able to get the job done there. But now with Coach Pugh, she has had success, but the success hasn't been on the hill, right? The success has been on the bluff. It's been in Louisiana, and so. I mean, what is the thoughts? I know Coach Smith has 2 years left on his contract. I think Coach Pugh only has 1 year left, right? So next year she has 1 year left. What do you need to see from her? And this season's not over, right? But let's just fast forward, right? And say, what do you need to see from her next year to say, hey man, this is what I need to see for her to continue in this position, in this post, for me to feel comfortable in getting behind this team versus I think we probably need to look another way.
I mean, I was really shocked when I did some research last year. I was researching before a game, and I saw Coach B was just absolutely accomplished at Southern. And that really, like Isaiah said in the comment, it really hasn't transferred over at all. I mean, and I don't know, that comment kind of has brought it to my attention that they may need a personnel change over on the women's side. It might not be Coach P specifically, it might be some of the assistant coaches. It might be a personnel team change with some of the players, but at the same time, we have had the talent. I mean, Diana Rosenthal, I believe that is a pro talent. Kennedy Paul is a very good player. She was button head with Coach Pugh at one point. Ryan Payne, of course, we already know, absolutely a pro talent coming out of LSU and coming to PV and absolutely playing great for us. We just have had a lot of players. Michaela Hutchinson is also very impressive. I can tell she butts heads with Coach Pugh. Jess Soders, very impressive. Definitely butts head with Coach Pugh. And that kind of plays into the chemistry aspect I was talking. Not only are players getting upset, for example, when Ryan Payne misses a pass to them in the corner or they think she's shooting the ball too many possessions in a row, they're also getting upset with substitutions. I know this might have been more bigger last year, but with Kennedy Paul, I mean, I was very confused. I feel like it was kind of an ego thing, which, of course, Coach Pugh is allowed to have because she is a championship coach. Mm-hmm. She was pulling out Kennedy Paul, and, of course, Kennedy is just very upset on the sideline. I think one time she might have even refused to get back in the game. And that, of course, played into her transfer this season. So, and it also probably played into the transfer with Diana Rosenthal this season. And it kind of gives some background on this. Last year, Diana Rosenthal, of course, broke the 1,000-point record here at PV, right? Mm-hmm. And after that, she got honored a couple games later. Okay, cool. But towards the end of the season, when it was kind of evident that she will likely be transferring, the social media pages kind of went about it a weird way with her, kind of deleting tweets, kind of removing that that aspect of notability for like, okay, yeah, she did this, but she's not gonna be here. So you know what? Let's just take all that down and kind of erase her from history, which is I found very rude, honestly. So I feel like that kind of starts at the top with Coach Pugh in a way, just trickling down a little bit. So I feel like the players weren't very receptive to her, weren't receptive to her play calls at all. But I do think something definitely needs to change, whether that's personnel with staff or the players. Something definitely has to change.
Oh, wow, man. And that's big. It's, at the end of the day, man, we always say, listen, once PV, always PV, right? You know what I'm saying? And so whether you came in and you're only here for a moment, but definitely for those who have accomplished something, right? Major here, right? You able to do that here in purple and gold. We want to respect those accomplishments. And so that's definitely not something we want to do or see. For you, Khalid, right? You've been here for, first year, right? In your experience. So you didn't even have any previous experience, right? With Coach Pugh or her coaching style, etc. What were your thoughts, as far as that's concerned, as far as that relationship or, some of the things you may have saw on the court and some decisions that were made from the coaching standpoint that you would say, man, I think this was, something that we need to maybe tweak and get better at?
So kind of going back to what I was saying originally, substitutions are huge, and learning when to take out certain players, when to make certain chess moves at certain times of the game, and I think Dorian really went in depth into everything that was on his part wrong with Coach Pugh's coaching style and the ego of her coming from being an accomplished coach at Southern. I do believe that it's about building that bridge between player and coach as well. Mm-hmm. Understanding that coaches that have good reception of play, like the players that have good reception of the coach, will always turn out 10 times better than a player that doesn't like to hear what a coach has to say. But it also comes with the fact of the coach that I've seen for women's has been the coach to do at certain times take out certain players when it doesn't make, like we were saying, the Alcorn game, very winnable game. Jackson Southern, very winnable game. We're up going into the half. It was just we're in positions where we need better coaching coming down the stretch, if that makes sense, and learning how to play with the chess pieces that we do have. You know, we understand that she is a very accomplished coach coming from Southern. However, these are the new chessboard, new chess pieces. We just need to learn when to make certain moves against certain opponents coming down the stretch. That's really what it boils down to.
I got you. No, and that makes sense, man. Like Mr. Pumpkin says, man, it starts at the top. And so if we can get that worked out and fixed. And listen, I think we have some good pieces, especially when you're talking about moving forward. Now, obviously, you know, Ryan Payne is a huge part of that because as far as scoring is concerned, you're talking about only one player on this team averaging in double figures. And so you definitely got to figure that out as far as having a second consistent and third consistent score that would go along with whoever your first scorer is going to be. The other thing with this team, man, is, you know, just like with the men's team, you know, didn't shoot well from the outside as a team. The women's team shot even worse, you know, as a team from the outside. I mean, every game, it just shocked me, right? I mean, one game, I think they shot 7% from three, right? You know, on one game, 1 for 16 or 1 for 10. And so, you know, it's going to be really hard to win games, right? If you can't knock down any shots from outside, it makes it harder and harder, you know, saying to be able to score because teams, again, are going to know, hey, listen, all we got to do, right, is keep them out the paint. And so I think that was definitely one of the issues. Now, when we talk about this year, our player awards for the women's team, I want to start it off, man, and listen, one lady who I appreciated throughout the year, I kept loving to see her, and especially from a defensive standpoint and a defensive end, was Adriana Waddle, right? She was somebody that stuck out to me as one of those transfers that were coming in that I was really excited to see and be able to figure out, okay, what is she going to be? What is she going to be able to do? And when you talk about, you know, overall, right? I believe she was second, you know, on the team in rebounds at 4.6. But when you talk about as far as conference play in the conference game, she actually averaged 5.2 rebounds a game, which was first on the team. She also had the most blocks on the team with 19 throughout the year, right, which put her at 1.3 blocks per game. And so you can see this trend, right, that this is a player who definitely, you know, put work in. When you talk about on the defensive side of things, she also, though, averaged 6.5 points a game, right, along with that too. And so, you know, I really, really, really loved Adriana Waddle's game. And I felt like definitely toward, you know, as the got toward the end of the year, especially when she was able to increase her playing time, right, and be on the floor a little bit more. Her production also increased along with it. So she got my most improved player of the year award. Khalid, who you got?
So for my most improved award, I have Jada Robertson. And I specifically put her there because, for one, her coming from the transfer portal, getting playing time at her school that she used to play for, and now she coming to PV. You've seen improvement in her scoring. You've seen improvement in really the veteran presence, and I think that's mainly one of the things. Aside from like the fact that, you know, coming from how she wasn't that much of a scorer, coming from where she came from, and then being able to really produce in place of Ryan and in place of other scorers on the team, you know, it was something that I feel like is very important, and that's why she gets my most improved.
That's good. That's good. Dorian.
Yes, and I like this little pool of players. This little pool of players we have right, because these were definitely players I was mentally battling with of who I should pick for this award. But I ultimately gave it to Jerlin because I was highly impressed with the way she had a little bit of a reduced role on the offensive end, but when she got in and they were giving her the ball, she was definitely producing. And while this might not be her best season with the numbers, her sophomore season by far being her best season here at PV, I was highly impressed with the way she come in and kind of dominate some of the fourth quarters when she was subbed in. I believe it was 2 specific games where she was subbed in the fourth quarter, and she just absolutely was on fire. She might have started the fourth quarter with 0 points, in the fourth quarter with 9 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and I feel like she just did improve, not only just with scoring, but rebounding. Towards the end of this season in particular, she was definitely a better passer. I remember one game she stuffed the stat sheet with about 9 or 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, just a complete game. So
Yeah.
I was highly impressed with the way she improved and kind of kept her head up and didn't respond negatively to getting her offensive role reduced.
Yeah, and this she reminds me of, Brian. I think Khalid mentioned that, or maybe it was you, Dorian, right? That talked about across the board. You saw Brian Miles improve, right, in all 5 categories. I think Geraldine Smith was in that same kind of vein, where you look across the board, stat line wise, you see like, man, she increased her percentages everywhere, right? And so it was good. She was definitely somebody else I also looked at, as far as this award. But I just think the energy of Adriana, right, in the small. I feel like she, the small segment of time she was able to get on the court was very impactful, and that's why I gave her my MIP. Now, newcomer of the year, it's a clean sweep. I think Mr. Pumpkin said earlier something about triplets with Javante Hopkins, and I think we see the same thing. So, I'm saying another set of triplets for y'all, man. Why Amari Williams, Dory? Why was it Amari Williams for you, the newcomer?
I remember when we got the official commitment from her, there was a lot of excitement. And I absolutely see what the hype is about. I mean, to come in and still have freshman eligibility on her play style, on her playing time, and to really impress a lot of people here at PV was astonishing. I mean, she averaged the second most points on the team as a freshman, didn't average the most rebounds, was definitely battling down there. And I was really impressed with the way she hit her free throws. I mean, she was a very good free throw shooter. So to kind of do all that as a freshman is impressive.
Khalid, what about you?
No, seriously. Kind of piggybacking off what Dorian said, it was exciting to first off see that she was able to be that Batman, that Robin to Ryan's Batman. And it was something to see that player being able to battle down low, rebound, and kind of fit everywhere. But most importantly, knock down free throws. That's something that when it mattered, she could get a bucket down low, but also be able to convert and ones. She did capitalize on a lot of high intensity moments. That's what I'm trying to say. She was the one to count on. And that's something that is very much needed coming into this game, because there's moments that we talk about all the time that players need to be able to produce when it really matters. And like I was saying before, when we mentioned this women's team, they were able to produce when it's time to produce. And Amari, she's one of those players to really produce when it's time to produce. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why she gets newcomer of the year for me.
Oh, and listen, I was one of those people that was excited. When I saw the commitment, I saw what she was in high school, right? I saw where she chose to go SEC route. And so her coming in, I thought, listen, this is going to be a great person to have, right? You know what I'm saying? One thing that I would say, right, that I'm looking for improvement is, and I think as she gets older, she'll be able to take care of this a lot more, right, is I think she allows sometimes the competitive nature of the game, right, to get to her and get her out of her zone. You know what I'm saying? And I think if she can stay in her zone, she's going to have even more impact than she had this year. A lot of times Coach Pugh has to get her off of the court because, she's kind of, she's from mentally, she's went left field right now and she's not locked in anymore. Right. And I think as she, when you think about somebody like an Angel Reese, right, this is somebody who can talk trash and still be focused, right, and still get it in. And I think with Amari, right, you're seeing where she's trying to learn where that thin line is and learn how to not allow other people to get her off her game. So that's definitely one thing that I hope to see improve from her. I think she obviously, plays well down low. She has a good drop step, right? I think also as she increases some of her flexibility, right? You know what I'm saying? When you talk about her being able to be in a weight room and also continue to be at a college where you're going to be able to work out and be able to get her body where she wants it to be, she's going to be able to just improve down low as far as being able to finish around the bucket, because I think a lot of times when she played against other teams that also had some size, she wasn't able to finish as she will be able to, right, in her sophomore, junior, senior season. But I'm excited, man. We talk about having somebody who shoots 50% from the floor and 90% from free throw as somebody who's a big down low. Oh, that's what you want, because as you talking about next year, she's going to get more playing time, more touches. She's going to be put on a free throw line a lot more because she's banging down low. And so to have somebody that can step up and they're going to hit 9 out of 10 of their free throws, right? 8 out of 10 in out of conference, 9 out of 10 in conference games. That's all you ask for, right? And so she's definitely somebody I can see easily who next year is talking about is going to be averaging definitely more than 10 points a game. This is somebody I definitely see as somebody who you're going to be able to count on as a consistent scorer, right, down low. And I'm hoping to also be able to see her to be able to increase her ability to get on the boards, right? And I think that's why I say we talk about getting the weight room, increasing her flexibility as well, right? Because it's not just about just all weights. It's also about, right, her being able to move and contort her body, right? Talk about being able to be more athletic in the air, etc. It's just going to work wonders for her. So I'm super excited to see where it's going, and being able to have somebody 6'4", man, that can put in that work down low. Oh, listen, that's an awesome piece that we got there. Now the question is, what can we do and add around there? Because we really need across the board to just be able to increase and kind of, push out the scoring load, right? Because I think we had triplets in newcomer of the year, and we also all had triplets here at the MVP. And one of the reasons, obviously, for me is because, listen, we talk about her having to have the scoring load, and that's a heavy scoring load she had to carry. And I know that there, like you talked about earlier, issues with, maybe sometimes her taking too many shots, right? Or forcing stuff. I think that also comes when you're not seeing consistent scoring from other places. You start to press as a scorer to try to be able to, to get things done, to keep the team, right, from getting down so much. I also think that plays a factor when you really have Ryan Payne as one of your best ball handlers too, right? And handling the ball a lot. Instead of having her off ball, right? Maybe having, Kayla play a little bit more, right? Or Jessica being able to handle a little bit more, or some of the other, Maya Monroe, right, who came in off the bench, right, and played some good minutes. So when you have somebody else who can take away that point guard role from Ryan and allow her just to focus on scoring the ball, I think that also would change the dynamics a little bit, because she doesn't also have that double responsibility of, hey, you're trying to also get other players the ball in the right spots, but also like you need to really focus on also putting the ball in the basket at the same time. So, but listen, she's definitely my MVP. Definitely somebody that I think it should be getting a look at as newcomer of the year, period, for SWAC. When you talk about SWAC newcomer of the year, I think she definitely should be in the running for sure, as far as that's concerned. And I didn't mention it earlier, but Brian Miles, I think also he's definitely somebody that should be getting a look at minimum, at least as a second teamer, averaging a double-double in conference. But, Ryan Payne definitely, listen, she gets my vote for newcomer of the year in the SWAC too as well. But Khalid, for you, why Ryan?
Man, so why not? If that's the best way to put it, why not? And she's the guy. She's the person to go to each time. Each time you see her bring the ball up the court, you see her giving extra effort on offense. She's in the mix all the time. And we always talk about her offensive, her defensive. She's able to still produce on defense too. Whether it be, and a lot of stuff doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but if it's a tip pass, if it's extra, whatever it may be, she's always there. And that's why she falls within the MVPs in my MVP. And something else to notice, she averages 16 points, which is a lot for conference play as well. So like you were just mentioning, newcomer of the year she should be top running for the whole conference, but MVP definitely for the Panthers.
Definitely. Dorian, why Miss Payne?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a numbers guy just like Khalid, and I mean, the numbers absolutely speak for themselves. I mean, she was third in the SWAC in scoring, averaging 15.8 points per game. Second in the SWAC in steals, averaging 2.4 steals per game. And I mean, there were a lot of games where she was getting crazy steal numbers, honestly. she was really doing it all for us. Like you mentioned, she was bringing the ball up a lot, which adds on to her load. She's playing defense, she's hustling, and I really respect the way she plays the game. I mean, she's playing through injuries. There was a right leg injury that was bothering her towards the end of the season, playing through it and still producing. And she also averaged about 17 points in conference play, even bumping up the scoring average by a point more. So I mean, she was really just our woman to go to this season. And I mean, I kind of was concerned, like I mentioned, we were missing Diana Rosenthal, who had been PV scorer in the past, right? And I was like, okay, I can see Ryan kind of taking up the reins of that. But I was impressed with the way she did it, because Diana was more off the ball in the corners, coming off screens, catch and shoot off the dribble. Ryan is creating shots, like you mentioned, for herself and for her team. And like I mentioned earlier, I look at the MVP as somebody who can do everything that contributes to winning. So she's out there scoring, she's out there getting assists, she's rebounding fairly well, playing exceptional defense. So she's just doing all the things that are key to winning. So that's my MVP, no doubt.
Yeah, that's dope, man. And I think across the board, obviously, we got the triplets up because she's definitely deserving. And again, another person that I think, hey, the SWAC, she has an opportunity not only to be the newcomer of the year, but also to make an all SWAC team as well for the numbers that she's put up. Now, the same thing we talked about with Coach Smith and the guys is the same thing here with Coach Pugh and the ladies. You know, you're talking about having somebody who's now maybe possibly an all SWAC performer, but she ain't gonna be here next year. You know what I'm saying? And so now it's like, man, you got to go out and start over with finding somebody that can score, because, Kayla had a very big game, toward the end of the year. I forgot which game that was. I don't know if it's the Valley game, but man, she came out and, man, you saw that 20 piece she put up. And so that was exciting to see, right? But you definitely, you talk about this team has nobody that shot over 30%. Nobody shot over 25% from three, other than Maya Monroe, and she only shot 7 threes on the year, right? So, that's only 3 for 7. I don't know if that even qualifies, right? Because she didn't even put up enough threes, right? So really nobody shot over 25% from three. So you got to be able to take care of that. And this is coming from the year before where Coach Pugh was really three happy, right? You know what I'm saying? And now you have a team that's completely opposite and not shooting well from the outside. So that's going to have to be figured out, man. But before we get into, what needs to be done for next year from Coach Pugh, let's talk about this SWAC tournament. Game is going to be coming up on the 13th, which is going to be this Wednesday at 5:30. Is going to be at ESPN Plus. Of course, if I have an opportunity, I will try to stream that game for us over here on PV versus Everybody for all those who may not have ESPN Plus. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? I might have y'all, maybe, right? But man, what do they need to do? What do these ladies need to do to go shock the world? Because listen, Jackson, not only is they 18-0, not only do they have over 20 wins, they're also receiving votes in the top 25 right now, which is major, right? Which is big for HBCU. And so, man, shouts out to Jackson. And so, listen, if we can't win it, the reality is I do want Jackson to win it, because I want us to have our best representative there. And so we can have a team there that can maybe, first of all, just to think of having a team that wouldn't be a 16th seed, that wouldn't be a 15th seed, but possibly could be a 14 or 13 or 12 seed, right? That's major, right? And so just for HBCUs, period, that's why I say, listen, if we can't knock them out, now listen, nothing to make me happier than to knock somebody off their high horse. Oh yes. PV versus Everybody, right? So we're gonna talk about that, but right, if they do win it, right, if we don't win it, they would be the team definitely that I would pull for, because I want our best, foot forward, right, as far as that's concerned. But how do we go out here and shock the world, the whole world? Shock Dunn Staley, because I know she's looking over here too, giving Tamika Reed big ups and stuff. How do we just shock the whole world? Because listen, this would be great, because this would be great for PV Nation to go in here and finish what we didn't finish a weekend ago. How do we do that?
Yeah, so we saw us do it the previous season in Jackson State's 38-game SWAC win streak. They had a chance to do it this season. I think the best way to do this is to capitalize on the size. I mean, Angel Jackson at Jackson State is a towering center for them, right? We have Adriana Waddle and we have Amari Williams, so we could hit it from both sides. I mean, Angel Jackson led the SWAC in blocks. I think she had about 79 or 80 blocks. So we just have to kind of get her out the game. And we did that last weekend, right? Kind of getting her in a little bit of foul trouble, kind of getting her off her game a little bit. And that was very key to us going up. And the rotation we played those games, I was really impressed with. We had about a 6 to 7 woman rotation. We weren't playing too many players that game, and if we were going over that 7 woman rotation, we were kind of playing them for short bursts of time. So that was really key to keeping us afloat. We had very good offensive production from, of course, Ryan Payne, who was, of course, leading the team again. But we just have to keep that momentum with us. We have to not let the floor fall from under us, like you mentioned, in the late fourth quarter. I mean, that was an absolutely winnable game. And I was really excited because I was courtside for when we broke Jackson State's 38-game win streak in SWAC play. And I was like, oh, here we go. We might be able to do it again. And I was like, that would be a really good treat to see for my last covered game. But we just let it slip up from under us. And they ended up winning by 10 points, which is shocking because if everybody was watching the game, it was a complete back and forth affair.
Right.
So for us to go down and lose by 10 was very upsetting when I know like this team can win this game. So I mentioned it early, when this team is on point, they are one of the best shows in the SWAC. And we have to show that against Jackson State in this tournament. The world's going to be watching. And if we can knock out a team that's receiving top 25 votes, that would give us the momentum we really need to shoot through the tournament.
Oh, man. Listen, if we can do that, that's going to put us in a really good position where, one, the team is going to really believe they can get the job done, right? Khalid, man, what you got? What do we got to do to win this game and shock the world?
I think number one is just come out with some intensity. Come out with some intensity, really knock them off, knock them off their game early. I think when you think of beating teams like this, a lot of them are going into the game thinking that, oh, well, they're the 8th seed, we're the number 1. That's basically what the guys did with Mississippi Valley State. What they didn't do was capitalize, no matter how big or small the game is. The women's against Jackson State on Wednesday, they need to come out there ready to knock people off their high horse, understanding that they are the underdogs coming into this game, catch them early, and so they can't recover, know. And then when they start recovering, it's too late, So starting off early is going to be very huge, knocking down shots, making sure we retain our free throw percentages as well. But most importantly, closing off the game. That is really big. Make sure that we're giving effort on defense, we're knocking down key shots, and that the coaching is taking in and out substitutions at the right time, calling the right plays, and stopping the center, stopping the inside. Once we control the inside, I believe that I saw one of the comments on here talking about making sure we put that big man in the big in foul trouble. That's something that we want to make sure we take her out of the game completely. Because once we're able to do that, Amari Williams, Gerald Smith, they're all able to attack the inside. And then we just have the game in our palm of our hands. So coming out early, making sure we key in and get players in foul trouble early as well. And just making sure that we come in with the right mindset and intensity that will put us over the top.
Yeah, man. Listen, 3 things for me: second chance points, rebounding, just in general, right? And then I gotta have somebody. I gotta have somebody just pop up. I don't know if that's Michaela Hutchinson. I don't know if that's Jessica Sodders this game. I don't know if that's Kayla this game. Jada. Somebody has to go with Ryan Payne, right? I know she's going to have some kind of numbers, right? What I would love to see is Ryan Payne at somewhere around 15 to 18 points, not 20 plus, because that means she probably had a lot of load of scoring on her, and her field goal percentage is probably lower than what it needs to be. Had to put up more shots than she needs to. I need her between 15 and 18. I need somebody else between 10 and 15, right? And then I need 2 players somewhere in the range of, 7 to 9. To me, that's a winning formula, right? That's a winning formula right there. If you have that type of production from all of your ladies, then you're talking about already just with those 4 individuals, you're talking about 40 plus points, right? And of course, you're going to have some other stuff sprinkled in because, we're not going to win this game scoring less than 60 points, right? So you got to be able to score. The other thing is what kills us many times and what shifts momentum many times is second chance points, man. Like we get them to put up a bad shot. We play great defense. We don't secure the rebound. And they put up a second chance shot, get a swing out for a three. That's what really kills us. Even on the offensive side of things, right? Us going down, right? Being able to actually shoot quality shots. Sometimes on some stretches, sometimes we don't really get actual good shots at the rim. You know what I mean? And so every possession is going to be super important in this game. And so we got to treat it in that way, in that manner. But if I see somebody on the stat line and if I see Ryan Payne at 12 and I can look and see somebody else at 7 or 8, then I'm saying, okay, we're in a good position, right? If I'm seeing that at the end of the halftime or even at the end of the third quarter, I'm like, okay, we're in a good position then. Because she has somebody that's walking along with her, and I think we'll have a good shot to win this game. And listen, man, I'm hopeful and I'm excited because there's nothing that would make me happier. Oh, it's nothing that would make me happier than to spoil somebody's party. Oh, yes. Spoiling the party. Oh, man, I can't wait to hear it. Then we can go on Twitter and just hear all the Jacksons just mad and upset and just crying and just snot flying out the nose and that. Hey, listen, Coach Pugh, ladies, man, listen, go get it done. We behind y'all. Like we said the other day, we can get it done. Why not PV? Why not? Why can't we go and spoil Jackson's party? Because they think they're about to throw a party. They getting ready for the NCAA tournament. They getting ready to be a 13th seed, a 14th seed. It's never happened for HBCU before, and it still ain't never happened because y'all ain't win the tournament because y'all lost the PV. It still ain't happened. I like it. I mean, I love it. I love that. So I'm be checking that out on Wednesday, 5:30. Make sure y'all locked in. If I have the opportunity, we're gonna be showing it right here, right? So make sure y'all locked in to the channel so we can support the ladies in their efforts. Man, if you're anywhere close to the Birmingham area, make sure you're out there showing your support because listen, it's gonna be some mad Tigers on Wednesday night. It's about to be some mad Tigers on Wednesday night. So listen, man, I appreciate you guys for jumping on the show, man. Any last words before we close out?
I'll go ahead and go first. I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity once again. I know I talked on the State of the Union, but I hope to see, although I am graduating, it's kind of why I wanted Khalid to join us, so we have these opportunities to grow this connection and kind of bring more of the Panther Sports Zone members onto the show to kind of give their expertise not only in basketball, but football, softball, baseball, track. I mean, I just want to continue to kind of build the connections with the entire PV fan base for our show as it grows beyond while I'm here. So I thank you for having me. I thank you for having Khalid. Once again, I really appreciate the opportunity. It sucks that I'm graduating, so this might be the last time I'm on here, man, but I really appreciate it.
Khalid.
Say, man, it's an honor, truly. I mean, I've been in this space for less than a semester. Well, a semester and semester and a half almost. And the opportunity to just come on here and speak about Prairie View sports is just, it's a blessing. It's a blessing above all. And I thank you for allowing us to be on here. I thank Dorian for taking me under his wing. So it's exciting. I cannot wait till Wednesday to see Jackson State lose. And but regardless though, even if it's gonna be an honor to see. It's gonna be an honor to see them accomplish things. So. But
we writing big checks.
Word. Always.
We writing big checks.
Always.
So after we take care of Jackson State, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna be looking to get that SWAC championship. You feel me? So listen, man, I appreciate y'all for coming on. Appreciate all the things y'all doing. And listen, hey man, I want to lock in with some of the other guys and ladies you got over at the Panther Sports Zone. So yeah, man, we can definitely make that work, have them on some future shows as well. And Dorian, listen, you graduating don't mean nothing. listen, I graduated 2009. I'm here. All right. So just because you're graduating, don't mean you can't be here. You know what I'm saying? PV versus everybody is always open, my guy. You know what I'm saying? You can come and share your expertise about Panther sports, man, because at the end of the day, it's what we're trying to do, you know, for the current students, student athletes, for former alumni, for former players. This is the place for it, man. And so we wanted this platform for that. And so, hey, man, we here for that. So you ain't got to be in hiding. You know what I'm saying? KPVU, you know what I'm saying, might be like, hey, listen, you graduated now, so we gotta move on. But listen, this is the perfect space for alumni. All right. So we got you.
Yes, sir.
We got you here, man. So listen, we writing big checks. Why not PV? So listen, go and write it down. We about to get the job done. See, we let y'all slip and slide. We let y'all Tigers slip and slide this other week, right? You know what I'm saying? We're just testing you, right? You know how you go and you play with the animals, you play right, like you about to capture them, you kind of end up letting them go. We really was just testing y'all because we was making this new tool, right? That we about to come and go ahead and get y'all with. So y'all better watch out on Wednesday, man. We're going to get the job done 5:30. So, again, make sure y'all checking the game out, man. Make sure y'all locked in. And you know where you're going to be able to come back and celebrate. It's right here, man, at PV versus everybody. So, again, we appreciate you guys for locking in with this. If you have not subscribed to the channel, man, please go ahead and like to and subscribe to the channel. We got big things coming. Hey, we got a big goal we're trying to reach right now, all right? If we get 1,000 subscribers by Friday, we got somebody who's going to be giving us $100, and I already told you what we're going to use it for. We're going to use it to put it toward donating toward this new merch that we got coming out. So somebody is going to get a free shirt. 2 people going to get free shirts if we can get to 1,000 subscribers. You know what I'm saying? And let me get you the close-up of what that say. Why not PV? All right. 2024 SWAC champs. You might say to yourself, the SWAC championship hasn't been played. They haven't declared what a SWAC championship is going to be yet. We don't need them to declare anything because we already know where it's going to be at. It's going to be taking place in Prairie View because we're going to have the best record next year. You might say, y'all haven't played the game yet. We don't have to play the game. We know what's going to happen. We going to win. So we go ahead. We making these shirts early because we can get them at a cheaper rate right now. You feel me? Because we making them so early, we get them for a cheaper rate than if we waited later. So we just go ahead and make it right now. All right. So make sure y'all locked in. Get your funds together for when that drop, man, because we talking big noise. We writing big checks. And the Lady Panthers about to write a big check. Listen, Lady Panthers, we got a big check for you. Handle your business. Talk heavy because it's already put together. So until next time, man, we're going to holler at y'all.